All rise.
Welcome to the Cyber Law and Business Report. Get the top story on the hot button internet legal topics of the day. This is your home for the latest on internet law and policy. Hear the latest net trends impacting business and have your questions answered right here. This is the Cyber Law and Business Report. Now, please welcome your host, the founder of the Internet Law Center, Bennett Kelly.
Good morning and welcome to the Cyber Law and Business Report. I am Bennett Kelly with the Internet Law Center, your host today, and please be seated. We have a great show for you today. We're going to start off the first half hour with Hank Hultquist. He's the Vice President for Federal Regulatory Affairs for AT&T, a small startup you may have heard of over the years. And then in the second half hour, we're scheduled to have Representative Dana Rohrabacher, a congressman from Orange County, California, and he's going to be talking about a patent reform bill that's pending in Congress that some are charging is a bank bailout bill in disguise. So we'll be talking about that in the second half hour. Just by way of background, the congressman is a former speechwriter for Ronald Reagan. And he's widely regarded to be one of the most conservative members of Congress. But he's really taken up the lead on this, on leading the opposition to a patent reform bill called the Invent America Act, which otherwise, up until recently, seemed to be sailing through Congress. And what's interesting is that the very conservative Congressman Rohrabacher has teamed up with liberals such as John Conyers, the former chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and it's created a pair of unlikely bedfellows. But the same is true is happening outside Congress. We have interest groups ranging from Ralph Nader groups to Phyllis Schlafly on the right, also teaming up to raise awareness on this bill. So what is this bill that we're talking about? It's the Invent America Act, and the idea is that there needs to be some updating of the patent system, and also to conform with some of the changes that have taken place in other countries. And one major change would be a shift from priority to those who invent first versus those who file first. And there's some who claim that actually is an anti-inventor position because it really favors the large companies that have the ability to garner the resources and hire the patent lawyers to submit their claims over the people who actually don't have that infrastructure and are focusing on their investment. In fact, one of the early patent boards had a member known as Thomas Jefferson, who explicitly rejected that position. But the provision that everyone seems to be steamed up of is a provision, and I believe it's in Section 18 of the bill, that would retroactively grant financial institutions certain benefits, and how the congressman talked about it in a little more detail, but it more or less will enable them to invalidate patents retroactively that they've been unsuccessful at invalidating through litigation. And so they're more or less doing an end run around the court system to try to win in Congress what they have been able to win in the courts. And I think one of the principal issues is their liability for infringing of patents involving check processing. And that's been an ongoing matter. And so this really seems like an end run. And when you consider the fact that we had the major TARP funds that were provided to the banks, with the expectation that the liquidity would then enable them to help fund Main Street, and the money instead was held on to, or even worse, used for bonuses, such as Bank of America used a lot of their money for bonuses for Merrill Lynch employees. And then when you consider the fact that on top of that, you have the banks, there's evidence that they have falsified evidence in order to facilitate foreclosures rather than showing restraint in that area, as has been urged by the president and Congress. And on top of that, there's also evidence that the banks have been also frustrated some of the investigations going on in that space They don't necessarily seem to be getting the corporate citizenship award at the moment, and so why should they be rewarded with such a plum? Well, this was a provision that was kind of put in, a little notice provision. It was put in in the Senate by Senator Schumer of New York, who clearly represents many of these institutions, and then the bill itself passed the Senate, like 90-something to 3 or 7, and some really overwhelming vote. And it has been approved by the House Judiciary Committee and is expected to come down for a vote later today, if not later this week. And so the congressmen and several Democrats on the House have been leading the charge against the bill and hoping to get it recommitted to the House Rules Committee in order to force, one, to postpone the vote, but also to establish a rule that will enable a more extensive debate on the measure. Because unlike the Senate, where bills are debated indefinitely, every bill brought to the floor of a House has to have a rule that specifies how long it will be debated and how many amendments would be allowed, et cetera. Because otherwise, with a body that has 435 members, it would be pure chaos. Not to suggest that doesn't occur anyway. But so that's what we're hoping to have the congressman on. And
well,
I
Bennett,
just got word. We have Congressman Rohrabacher.
Yes.
Congressman.
Yes, I'm right here.
Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. And I was just doing
but I'm glad we got together.
Just doing an intro on the bill, the patent reform bill, and particularly Section 18. And do you think it's fair to call that a bank bailout?
I think it's fair to say that there is a special interest insert into the bill, and that the banks are the ones who are going to benefit from it. Unlike every other group in the country, I mean, this is they're going to have a special privilege of negating a patent that in any other business they'd have to pay the royalties to the inventor.
And in fact, they tried to negate it in the court system and have failed, have they not?
That's correct. This is just to talk about a corrupt, I consider it corrupt, just application of government power in order to change the law, the rules of the game, in order to benefit one group of people. And what we're talking about is the ownership rights of inventors is being changed in order to help a group of bankers. And that's
this raises certain constitutional questions, does it not?
Well, there's a lot of constitutional questions about the overall bill, and this is one of them. But I think there's many factors in this bill that are unconstitutional, and these people they don't give a damn about the Constitution anyway. What they care about is harmonizing our law with the rest of the world's. Well, guess what? Harmonizing our law with the rest of the world's may not be in keeping with our Constitution. After all, America's Constitution protects the individual rights to a much greater degree than those constitutions and law structures in different countries around the world. So why do we want to harmonize with them to weaken our system? And I think it's unconstitutional. Just the very first part of it changes what they call the first to invent versus the first to file. Our country from the day one, and in the Constitution itself, it says the inventor is the one who's going to be given the rights of ownership of his invention. And they've changed that now to the European words, which are the first to file. So you have some entity filing and beats out the real inventor because they managed to have a stable of lawyers. Maybe it's an overseas company that stumbled across some intelligence report talking about the development of this new technology. They end up owning the technology.
Now, you're teamed in opposing this bill with John Conyers and several other liberal Democrats, and I'm sure that doesn't happen every day, not that it never happens, but given the fact that you have people like yourself and Congressman Sensenbrenner teamed with Conyers and some of the others, shouldn't that be a wake-up call to the House that there's something seriously wrong here?
Marcy Kaptur, who's very active Democrat, and several other really top Democrats are with us in this. In fact, I would think that we're going to get a higher proportion of Democrat votes in this than we are Republican.
Now, when is the vote scheduled?
Well, right now it's not scheduled because we have managed to raise so many serious issues that they can't handle it. And just like the very constitutionality of it, we demanded. I went out with Marcy Kaptur. We got 50 members of the House to sign a letter demanding a debate on the constitutionality of the issue before us. So we're going to have a separate debate on the constitutionality of the bill. And Conyers and Jim Sensenbrenner will be presenting our side, and I'm not sure who will be on their side, probably Lamar Smith. And that in and of itself is something that's a major deterrent to them.
Now, the bill passed the Senate something like 97-3 or something of that magnitude.
Oh, yeah.
Is there an expectation that it will sail through the House?
Well, let me put it this way. They had planned to try to ram this through. I'll show you how sinister it is or how arrogant they are. Today's the day of the White House picnic for congressional picnic. So all the members of Congress will go to the picnic later on, about at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, they planned that they were going to have the debate on the patent bill after the presidential picnic, which means nobody would hear it. And then, so these guys are, and they're pushing it through now before anybody has a chance to contact the various people in the public who would be opposed to this. I call it a patent grab bill. This is our patent. This is the a bill. It's not a patent reform bill. It's a patent rip-off bill. And so I've just been calling it the rip-off bill, but most of the people in the United States, whenever you hear the word patent, they won't pay attention to it, but in reality, it's our patent system that's made us prosperous.
No, it's interesting you said that, the whole, the snooze factor on patent, but yet this seems to have really caught fire. And what do you attribute that to?
Well, I think there are people like yourself and others who are now have the ability to go directly to people and draw their attention to something that in the past you had to go through the regular news media to get to them. And that's, I'll have to tell you, the people behind this bill, there's about 12 companies. They're some of the biggest multinational companies in the world. And there's just been a few of us here fighting this battle, so it really is David versus Goliath, and it's an attempt by these big guys to screw over the little guys and steal their patents, and where are these patents going to go? A lot of them are going to go overseas. Once the public understands the magnitude, the threat of this, the big guy versus little guy, and how our technology is going to be used against us, people start paying attention then, but they got to hear it first.
Now, this would be very significant, I imagine, for startups in your district and in California in generally.
Oh, big time, because startups don't have money for a stable of lawyers. These mega corporations that are behind this, as well as, I might add, foreign cyber attackers and people who are overseas just licking their chops, waiting to be able to take, for example, right now, if you're issued your patent, you basically, a small guy can go into commercializing his product. But under this new law, he would be susceptible to challenges to his patent even after the patent's been issued. So what you've got are these companies. Take these big Chinese companies. What are they going to do? They're going to tie up the little guy with litigation and with challenges over and over. Company after company after company will challenge it, and the time will be eaten up, and the inventor will get nothing.
Well, Congressman, I really want to thank you for joining us. I know we only have a little bit of time, and we actually have to sign off shortly as well. But taking on this kind of complex issue and really putting it fire to it, you deserve a lot of credit. And hopefully,
everybody has to be joining this fight, or we're going to lose. Everybody needs to call their congressman and say no on the patent ripoff bill H.R. 1249. That's H.R. 1249, the patent ripoff bill. And if enough people call, the little guys will have thwarted these multinational corporate giants.
Well, I hope someone sends you a pocket protector to recognize your role in helping out the patent geeks of the world. And but thank you for taking this issue on, and please keep us posted.
You got it. And let's do this again next week, when I think the bill will probably come up next week.
Happily. Everyone, that was Congressman Dana Rohrabacher from California in Orange County. And thank you very much, Congressman, and good luck.